Hey guys, welcome back to World of Warships. Today we get to look at the Tennessee, and I am so excited to finally have this ship in the game. The way it's been designed is exactly what I've wanted out of battleships for years, for probably 8 or 9 years at this point. I wish there was less overmatch, and I wish there was more consistent damage to broadsides. I've said that for a very, very long time. Overmatch is annoying. Getting 0 damage on broadsides is annoying. What if we just reduce the overmatch and up the damage to broadsides? Surely that would be more enjoyable for most people. Or at least that's what I would prefer to see. You can have your own opinions, I don't mind. But for me, that's what I want out of battleships most of all. I don't want the damage into angled ships. It doesn't feel like I'm being rewarded for my positioning and catching someone making a mistake. It feels like I'm just kind of gimmicking them with overmatch, where damage to broadsides, it feels like I'm positioning my ship well, catching someone making a mistake, and then punishing that. And I would really like to see more of that in the game. Tennessee is almost that concept. It's so close. There's some problems with it, but it's very, very, very close to being what I want out of battleships. So what is it? It is going to be essentially a New Mexico, kind of, up-tiered into tier 8. You get the up-tiered armor, so 32 millimeters of armor everywhere. Some problems with the armor, but we'll take a look at that later towards the end of this video. But crucially, you get these New Mexico guns with cruiser accuracy. Cruiser dispersion, guys. You're gonna hit a lot of very accurate salvos with this ship. 1.9 Sigma, so a little bit lower than we see on cruisers, but not too bad. For reference, New Mexico has battleship dispersion, which is pretty bad compared to cruiser dispersion, obviously, and 1.5 Sigma. Sigma being the tendency of the shells to go towards the center of its dispersion ellipse. The dispersion is drawn out, and then the Sigma tells you how likely the shells are to land towards the center. Bigger number, better. So 1.9 Sigma here is pretty nice, pretty standard for American battleships. But it's that dispersion that we get, that cruiser dispersion. And you're going to be very, very good at punishing destroyers as well. We do nice damage into DDs. I'll show you some more of that later on. But of course, we're more interested right now into cruisers, into battleships as well, into their broadsides. Something to be a little worried about, though, is how do you get this ship? Is it going to be some crazily monetized event or anything like that? Well, it seems like it's going to be a web event where you can actually get this ship for free. I don't know how much grinding that's going to take. Probably a ton, but you can earn this ship. You can also buy it outright, which I love to see. This is my main complaint anytime Wargaming brings ships that are loot box. I really think people should just be able to buy the ship outright, know what they're paying for, and get what they're paying for. Tennessee has that available, but only for a very limited time. So unfortunately, we're dealing with some FOMO mechanics here. I think it's a week you only get to buy this ship outright, otherwise it's going to be gone. And only available then through that web campaign, I suppose, or random bundles. Because you can gamble for this ship, but again, I would really strongly not recommend that. Unfortunately, I do not know the cost of these things, so hard for me to make a judgment call on that at this point. But it does worry me that you only have a week at the very start to buy this ship outright. And let's be honest, the web campaign probably is going to last a little bit longer. So maybe people are going to go in thinking, hey, I don't need to buy this ship outright. I'll play enough to get it. And then something comes up, life gets busy, don't have enough time to grind out the web campaign to get it for free. And then your only recourse to get the ship is to gamble on it later on, I think. Now, maybe that is me being very, not very charitable, taking the worst look at this potential event, but I just don't know. And that could be the case here. So if you're interested in this ship, definitely think about buying it in that first week. I hate that that is such a short time. It's not even a full patch available to buy. That is such a short period of time, which is too bad. But back to the ship. Let's talk some more about Tennessee. Unfortunately, your guns are just New Mexico guns, so it means your pen is not amazing. Double Citadel there into the Ipiranga, which is great, but as you get into higher tier ships, like fighting higher tier ships, you're going to notice that you're going to shatter quite a bit. And in fact, I played against an Iparanga previously before this match, and I was shattering on his broadside. I believe I'll have that clip thrown in a little bit later on. So a little bit low pen there, but hey, we got ourselves a poor tier 6 cruiser. This is what this ship was made for. Look at that dispersion. Some of the turrets aren't as good, but for the most part, yeah, that was probably always going to kill him. We're already up to 91,000 damage, couple citadels. Positioning this ship to find these broadsides is going to be quite difficult. It's so slow. This is a very, very, very slow ship. You get 20.5 knots of speed. Taking a speed flag and brisk, I think, is going to be a very crucial thing to have. I mean, look at that dispersion again. Cruiser dispersion, guys. Not quite the full health Dev Strike, but close enough. Hopefully my teammates can finish him off. And that is a Halsey Confederate. So we're maybe looking at the best possible results out of a Tennessee here in this first game. This is not the usual reload on Tennessee you're going to have, but it's still a very, very respectable reload. You get 28 seconds base, so up from the 35 seconds on the Arizona, 34.2 seconds on New Mexico. Ships with similar guns, but much longer reload and much worse dispersion. Roma is angled to us, and we do actually surprisingly good damage there for only a few pens or over pens there. But a lot of shatters, a lot of bounces when people are angled. That's what I want to see. I don't like, though, that this ship has an underwater citadel. That's one of the main problems here. I want this game to be punishing people for playing poorly, which is to be caught broadside, and rewarded for playing well, which is angling. But Tennessee has a very much below water citadel, so you're not going to be citadeling this ship at all. Really, the punishment here is being so incredibly slow and vulnerable to high explosive. The turret angles aren't amazing either, so perhaps you'll take AP full pens, 40 degrees forward, 37 degrees while kiting. Not the best. Our turret traverse is incredibly slow as well at 60 seconds. I think only Yamato style ships, I think the Shikishima as well, has slower turrets, but very, very, very slow turrets here. It's a slow, sluggish ship. It's going to punish you for not positioning well, not preparing your guns properly, which is a good thing. But why can't it get punished for going broadside too, right? Like, why not? Just give us big citadels, Wargaming. Reduce the overmatch, but give us gigantic citadels, so when we go broadside, we're guaranteed to be punished for it. Please. And then you'd have to decide if you wanted to use all of your guns or not. There would be a skill involved in, do I want to give enough broadside to shoot all my guns, but then I risk taking citadels? The game is so much better in my opinion, and it is my opinion, okay? I'm gonna talk like, I often talk like I'm right about everything, and this is objective fact, but it's my opinion, guys. It's just my opinion. I forget to add that in a lot of the time when I get going, but it is just my opinion. But I think this game is better when you're punished for your mistakes and rewarded for playing well. And you're forced to choose, do I want to get more damage, shoot all of my guns, or with the potential we take citadels? But that's not happening here, unfortunately. That's one of the problems. The other problem is the high explosive. You're not seeing that here, as I really, really wanted an AP only game, and we do manage to get it. But into up tiers, the HE is going to be absolutely absurd, as well as into these mid tiers, lower tier games as well. But I wanted to use the AP, and it is very nice AP. Absolutely monster salvos into this Tirpitz here, as he's broadside. Tirpitz with Turtleback, I don't mind that ship not taking citadels. They take, well, 1 billion damage to superstructure anyway. There would be case-by-case exceptions to everything has a gigantic citadel, of course. 3 kills at this point, nearly 200,000 damage. Unfortunately, in this one, our teammates who spawned in the north sailed all the way down to the south and then died to the Iparanga. I don't know why they did that. I guess this is going to be the part of the video where we just talk a little bit about positioning and playing on your flank. Please, guys, don't just abandon your flank. It's really, really bad for your team. It's basically throwing the match at the start. I'm going to try and carry this one through, but it's going to be tough. That's 4 kills now. We're getting close to a Kraken. That plane spotting from Arc Royal there is definitely going to be helping us out. Again, Z39 gets spotted. Speaking of our plane spotting, or AA here, we do have a defensive fire, but the AA is not amazing, I've found. It's just all right, and unfortunately, if you take some hits, especially with HE, you're going to lose a lot of your AA mounts. They're going to be permanently destroyed, and you're not going to have very much AA damage left at all. And defensive fire these days does not actually spread drops out to their maximum dispersion like they used to in the RTS days. So if your AA is getting blown off your ship, you pop your defensive fire. Sure, you're buffing your AA, but you're buffing almost no damage anyway. So is it really all that useful? Ibaranga got caught broadside again. Boom! Smashed with another Citadel. That's going to be another Kraken. It's so close, man. It's so close. If the HE was toned down, you're going to see that in the next game. If the HE was toned down just a little bit, or maybe a lot, and this ship was vulnerable to taking Citadels, I think this would be the perfect archetype for a battleship. It's slow. It's pretty easy to take down because it can't get away. It's going to be punished for positioning poorly, at least when it comes to HE spam. I do wish that, again, it would take Citadels when going broadside. But it's just a little bit too good when it comes to that high explosive, and I think the concealment here is also a little bit too strong. I think this ship should not be as concealed as it is. I think you should know where battleships are coming from, and they have to play really well to use island cover to avoid detection, instead of just being in open water and having like 11 or 12 kilometer detect. I forget what it is right now, but we'll look at that in port. It's very, very good concealment. Oh, and I almost forgot, we're like over 10 minutes into this video and I haven't even mentioned it yet. You get the Massachusetts style heal, Ohio style, with the 40-second cooldown. So you're gonna get punished for playing poorly and positioning bad with HE spam, but you can survive a surprising amount of it thanks to that fast cooldown on the heal. It's got a lot of tools, man. It's really slow. It doesn't have the improved acceleration maneuverability like we see with the Vermont line these days. It did not receive that buff of these style of ships, which I think is a good thing. I think it's good that it's really, really slow. I think if it had a little bit worse conceal to really show where the ship is, and you'd really get punished for playing badly, positioning badly then, and it had a Citadel that you could hit, this would be pretty much the ideal battleship for me. You're gonna take damage to it when you make a mistake to it, but the ship itself, it will get punished for playing poorly too. It's close. It's really, really close. But I gotta say, having cruiser dispersion on your main guns as a battleship is so fun. It's so much fun to have this kind of accuracy and consistency into broadsides. It just requires you to not have overmatch. Obviously, if this had more overmatch, it would be absolutely busted overpowered. It still might be too strong. We're gonna see that as we go on, but it might be too good. I really like it though. I gotta say, I really, really do enjoy it. Speaking of that overmatch, you still get 24 millimeters of overmatch, so light cruisers still will take overmatch to this ship. Maybe if it didn't overmatch the deck and upper belt armor, but it could still get through the bow of the light cruisers. I don't know. There would be discussions to be had about how to change overmatch. You still need a tiny bit of it, I think. If you give everything the ability to angle, then it becomes a little weird. Things like World of Warships Legends, I think Colbert has 32 millimeters of armor. You can imagine how insane that is. I don't know if we want to do quite that much, but it's interesting to have less overmatch, certainly, and better damage, better consistency into those broadsides. Pretty insane first game, though. Although that was not my first game. That was closer to the end of my play session. I mostly got tier 10s, actually. My matchmaker was not very kind to me, so I resorted to spamming high explosive. And this is where it all breaks down, unfortunately. Alongside not having a hittable Citadel, your HE is absolutely ridiculous. Yes, that was over 13,000 damage from one salvo into a Vincent, alongside a fire. You have 30% fire chance, and your HE shells, they have 59 millimeters of pen. And they have 5,000 alpha damage per shell, and you have a 28-second reload. So you're kind of just like a mini Conqueror at home with cruiser dispersion. I don't know about that. I don't know about that, man. Oh, look at that. Another 8K and a double fire. Yeah, it's a Vincent, so I don't feel bad. But imagine this onto your battleship as you're trying to push in, trying to brawl, and then this thing just is slinging HE at you, hitting you for 10,000 damage and a fire every once in a while. Or maybe you're playing your cruiser and you're angling properly, but what if it just swaps to HE and manages to hit you for 10,000 damage and fires with HE? Suddenly, all that talk about rewarding people for playing well, punishing people for playing poorly goes out the window when you can just swap to the HE and do a bunch of damage no matter the angle someone's at. It's close, right? It's so close to being what I want, but the HE is just too strong. It's just too good on this ship, unfortunately. I think you're not going to see very many ships, Tennessee's played particularly well, since it can die rather quickly, 32 millimeters of armor. It's going to get HE'd down itself rather easily. It's incredibly slow, so people who don't do the best with positioning it, they're going to die rather quickly. Think about how quickly some of the low-tier American battleships die, and now up-tier that level of speed and maneuverability into a tier 8, sometimes tier 10 meta that can kill things even faster, right? So I don't know how busted it'll be overall, but for a good player, well, is it really that much skill to just spam HE at a bow on Vincent like this? Maybe it doesn't take that much skill to do that, but that's kind of a lot. In fact, I'm getting a little unlucky here, if I can complain a second about spamming HE. Not getting fires. There's only a fire on his rear superstructure section, so trying to aim for that front superstructure and bow. And we can pinpoint targets on a ship because the dispersion is so good. Not getting those fires, unfortunately. There we go. Finally getting the fire. Shattered a little bit on his gun, so a little bit less damage, but we do get that fire. We're already up to 60k damage, and we're not even 5 minutes into this match. Hildebrand, a planes spotting for us. Yeah, it's a fun meta right now, guys. It's a really, really fun meta. So unfortunately, I think that's going to be the Tennessee is it's going to be an HE spammer. And that's super disappointing to me because, as I said at the start of this video, this is nearly the archetype of battleship I want in this game. I want less overmatch. I want less damage to angled ships. I want more consistent damage to broadside ships. If I could, like, distill my entire thought process around battleships, cruisers, balance, all that stuff, that would be it. There's specifics to figure out that would be very difficult on a case-by-case basis, sure. But as like an idea of just the overall balance between battleships and cruisers, I think cruisers should take way less damage than they currently do when angled, and I think they should take way more consistent damage when they're broadside. They take damage when they're broadside, but I mean, we've all had those salvos, right? Where it just doesn't lock on, it doesn't give you the dispersion, shells go low, overpens at close range. It's frustrating. But so too, equally frustrating is it to play a cruiser. You're playing well, you're angling, you're dodging, and then that one random shell disperses out of the clump, the salvo that was shot, and it overmatched citadels you at like 18 kilometers. Like, that's super unfun, right? I would way rather have that happen, right? When you go broadside, you take the big hit, but when you're angled, you're not taking those hits. That's what I want. And Tennessee is so close, right? This Richelieu would be playing extremely well by playing bow on like this to us. Unfortunately for him, I have nuclear HE shells that are cruiser dispersion, so I can just pinpoint his bow. Sure, we only do 6-7k damage there, but we guarantee the fire on his bow. Maybe I'm gonna get a little bit too greedy here, but if we have cruiser dispersion and 4 turrets, there's 4 points on the ship we could light, right? What if we shoot 1 turret at the bow, 1 turret, 2 turrets at the superstructure, front and back, and then try and hit the rear yet? It's not gonna happen, okay? I'm not trying to hype this up like it's gonna happen, but if you get the right kind of dispersion and RNG, I mean, we still hit 9 shells out of 12, and we got 1 fire, so it's gonna be pretty rough to fight against this ship. Unfortunately, we do end up losing that game. One of the reasons I'm not a huge fan of tier 8s most of the time is this, where your tier 10s don't do a whole lot. Again, in this game, they walked away from the other flank and over to my flank, and then we just got surrounded and we died. But decent potential damage in that one, actually. It was like 2.9, 2.7 million potential damage. That's pretty good for a ship that doesn't have a lot of HP into tier 10. Ipiranga broadside, punish? No, actually. So it usually punishes. I think we probably aimed a little bit low there, And then the shells hit the water before it hit the armor belt and the citadel, so then it didn't have enough pen, and it shattered, I think. Z42 pushing here, and yes, I got to show you guys some absolutely filthy salvos onto some destroyers, because it can do that too. I'm waiting here for him to turn away, trying to guarantee shots into his broadside. That's where we're going to do the most damage with HE. And we still land 7 shells on his bow. Yeah, it's pretty good, man. The HE is pretty good. I don't know why it's got such strong HE, man. Jutland here as well, still on that high explosive. It's so good. It's 5k alpha damage on cruiser dispersion, 12 guns. That's kind of wild. Only 3 hits there, only. But you might actually be better off shooting AP into destroyers. The general advice, of course, is to swap to HE when you're fighting against DDs. And you're going to see both sides of 10k into angled Iparanga that is saturated already, right? Like, he's low health. He's obviously saturated in a superstructure. Absolutely wild. But you're going to notice that sometimes you're better off actually shooting AP into destroyers. Sometimes HE is going to hit modules and do 0 damage. In fact, here, we hit the Catalunya there for 4 HE pens and did not manage to kill him on like 2,000 HP. Sometimes you hit modules and do 0. And that can happen into DDs, especially when they're angled, especially when they're at longer ranges. When they're close range like this, I mean... 9 out of 12 on a Jaeger. Jaeger's so small, it could be a submarine. And yet we still hit 9 for 12. Yeah, that's kind of wild. But into, I believe, the Jutland here, we're going to do a little bit less. And the HE actually is worse than if I had shot AP. You're always guaranteed 10% of AP alpha damage whenever you get a hit on a destroyer. And sometimes that's going to do just a little bit better. But the HE is still very good. And of course, since it's so strong on Tennessee, you're probably going to have it loaded more often than not. We, of course, are running Gunfeeder. I'm running Halsey, so I got the improved version, so it's pretty easy to swap back and forth. Notice our D-Fire here, but our AA is down to 57%, so not doing a whole lot of plane damage. Yeah, it's unfortunate, but your AA modules can get permanently destroyed alongside secondaries. So maybe Wargaming could fix that, and then AA would be a little bit better towards the late game, but as it stands, it's pretty rough. Into this Jutland here, I mean, we're going to get really, really good damage, but it would have done more. This salvo would have done more with AP. We get 8 hits for 8,100 damage. The AP here, especially because I have heavy AP, is going to do over 11,000. So 8 hits at 1,100 versus the 8 hits we got there for 8,100. We would have got a little bit more out of the AP. It can happen. And that's an example where the Jutland was broadside and not particularly saturated. This is small things, by the way. We still smashed him. I'm probably nitpicking there, but it is just something to be aware of. There's times where the AP will do a little bit better into destroyers. It's not just a rule that you swap to HE for DDs all the time. That's all I'm trying to say, basically. But the HE is absolutely insane. Look at that DD damage, man. Absolutely crazy consistency into those destroyers, and into anything, really, when you're shooting the HE. Specifically against broadsides, the AP is nice and consistent as well. Unfortunately, I'm not sure how much AP you're going to see out of the Tennessees as they get into the matchmaker queue, since, yeah, that HE is just a little bit too good. Those are my complaints here about this ship, the HE and this Citadel, or lack thereof. I mean, look at that. That is... Yeah, not a fan of that. That should have been, in my opinion, it should have been this. This should have been the Citadel, at least. Give us above water Citadels, Wargaming. Please, please, reduce, exactly like this ship does, reduce the overmatch, increase the consistency through dispersion into broadsides, and increase the consistency into broadsides with above water Citadels. Please, just reduce the overmatch, reduce the HE doing such insane damage to angled ships, and allow us to play a little bit around our armor and get punished for not playing correctly, positioning correctly, but get rewarded for positioning our ship and catching someone out. Please. It's so close, man. It's so close. I'm certainly going to enjoy playing this ship, but it's gonna feel like I have to like handicap myself when playing it to force myself to just mainly use the armor piercing. You saw in the first game, it does absolutely ridiculous damage, but it also just is so consistent with the HE. Using gun feeder gets us down to like 11-second swap time, so you can just use whatever ammo type is best for the situation. That's gonna give you obviously the best results out of this ship. I just wish it wasn't so good with the HE, man. Here's the build that I was running. Trying again to focus on the AP just a little bit more. A in defense, ASW expert here is really just because I knew there was going to be a lot of Hildebrands out today, as well as some other carriers. So really trying to buff the AA just a little bit, just to see what it can do, especially with that defensive fire. But unfortunately, they get blown off your ship rather quickly. So it's of questionable value, I guess. And then the upgrades look like this. Pretty basic stuff. That was with propulsion mod, by the way. So we were that slow with prop mod. It is very, very sluggish to play. It does not maneuver very well at all. It's not going to be dodging salvos. And again, it's 32 mil armor everywhere. Except for your torp protection, which is 35. But 32 everywhere else. So you will get absolutely melted. You're slow. You're going to get melted by HE. Unfortunately, you don't get as punished for going broadside. I wish you were. And I guess the other thing is the torp protection isn't that good. Only 35%. I mean, I guess it's fine. Like, it's not too bad, but considering how stupidly thick your ship is, that's not a lot of torp protection. I don't know. Maybe, again, maybe perhaps nitpicking here just a little bit with this thing, but I don't know. I just wish the HE wasn't as good, man. It's that whole archetype I want. Less damage to angled ships playing well, more damage to broadside ships that are playing poorly. That's what I want, man. I want it so badly. And with this event, remains to be seen how it's going to go. I hope it's not an insane grind for the web event to get this thing. And if it is, maybe consider buying it outright for regular purchase and not waiting. I don't know. I don't know what to recommend here, man. I don't have enough information right now. It just feels bad that you only have a week to actually buy it outright. Otherwise, it's the web campaign where if you grind, you can get it. But if you don't have the time, something comes up, then your only recourse left is going to be the loot boxes, which sucks, man. I wish you were still given the option to buy it outright if you don't manage to finish the web campaign in time. That's what I would like to see, to criticize a little bit the monetization here. Still better, I think, than Hildebrand. That ship to buy outright, of course, was 50,000 doubloons. We'll see what the price is on this one, though. I don't know it yet. Maybe I'll update the pinned comment or something like that with once I know. But that's going to do it for the video. Thank you very much for watching and have a great rest of your day.